welcome all the participants to this masterclass today, which talks about digital business strategy for execution, which is very, very important in today's time. We are here on the CII MTech platform, which gives an opportunity for all industries to visit the virtual exhibition, which has several technology solutions, providing a lot of innovative products and services which are there for them. And every day we have these master classes, which also help them to understand what are the solutions that could help them in their daily businesses as well. So today we have this session on digital business strategy to execution, and it will be presented by Mr. V. Srinivas Rao, VSR as he is popularly known. He's the chairman and MD of BT&BT. Over to you, Mr. Rao, and you'll also be having some polling questions, so I would request the participants to be very attentive to answer those polling questions, which will also come in a while. Over to you, Mr. Rao.
Okay, thank you, Kavita, for the introduction. Thank you very much. So I'm going to spend probably next 30 minutes on the digital business strategy and execution. This is probably most of the people have been hearing about this for the last 1 decade. So I would like to share some of my experience, how I translated that to a sort of a template or a framework, which will help both the business executives and also the technology executives to translate their strategies to execution, and also how to create the strategies and all. So let me start my session by sharing the screen. All right, so I hope you're able to see the screen. Right. So
yes, we are.
Yeah, technology is the game changer and change maker. That's why I mentioned in today's fourth industrial revolution and also the digital economy. When I say game changer, it's like better today. That means already you are in the game and you want to change the direction and the outcomes. Then change maker is something you have to create a new big change that will yield results in the future. So that's where the technology is now a driving force for a better today and a better tomorrow. So look at here, in the last 1 decade, we have been talking about so many technologies. I just put it in a very simpler manner. What we are talking today is not one technology, it is a technology fusion. Whether it is communication collaboration technologies, operations technologies, information technologies, or biotechnologies, and so many. Tomorrow, probably you might look at some other things. So the challenge to all the business executives and technology executives is how these so many technologies and the fusion of these technologies going to impact their organization and how they really gear up for that. So with all the fusion of these technologies, what is happening today is we are able to give life to things. The things here could be cars, machines, equipment, bed sheets, chairs, whatnot, anything, even a plant, for example. So when I say we are giving life to things with this fusion of technologies means, life means what? We can sense, we can probably think, we communicate, and to some extent we can predict. If I am able to give these features to things with the fusion of technologies, don't you think we are giving life to these things? I call them as intelligent things. That means if they are not at the capability of the human being, certainly they are doing some of the activities what human beings are being done. That's where the intelligent things. In summary, in the last 10 years with these technology advancements, we are living in a very new world. I call it as a hyper-connected world. So when I say things, they are able to perform some of the activities what we human beings are able to perform. So hence, there is a communication and collaboration in real time happening between people to people, people to things, and things to things. Imagine, we never heard when people work with things which are very intelligent. Don't you think the business, government, our life, and even the society completely get disrupted? When somebody asked me, in today's hyper-connected world, what is the population of India? It's not 130 crore. It is probably 200 crore. The remaining 70 crore are the intelligent things. It could be cars, it could be machines, or it could be equipment. Similarly, the world's population is not 780 crore, it probably 3,000 crore. So we are living in a world where people and things work together. The complete landscape is changing in the businesses and other entities. So with this context, then what are the challenges the businesses are facing? So let me give few of my thoughts here. First, if I design a vision probably a decade back or 5 years back, is that vision right? Is that vision and dream relevant to today's hyper-connected world? Is a fundamental question. Then the second important thing is, who is my customer? My customer expectations are changing. So they are, as I mentioned, they are hyper-connected, their tolerance levels have gone down, their purchasing decisions are based on the information available in social media. They have low tolerance level to move from one service provider to other service provider. So you have different categories of customers, all are using digital technology, social media, internet very heavily, whether it is Gen Zs, Gen Ys, Gen X, or baby boomers, it doesn't matter. So their behavior, their expectations, their needs all changed. If you as a business don't understand that and don't change your gears, you will be outdated. And who is my competition? Very unknown competition. Banks never thought Google become a competition. Automotive industry never thought Google become competition. Or the Swiss watches, they never thought Samsung or Apple become competition. So you really are getting into a new battlefield. It's an unknown competition. Any technology superpowers like Amazon, Google, Apple, all these can become competition to traditional businesses. So with this, now I cannot kill my existing business, and at the same time, I have to prepare for digital business. So I'm forced to drive, at least for some time, the two-speed businesses. That means the traditional and digital. But the sad news is, with this context setting in the hyper-connected world, and a lot of things are happening, as I mentioned, 70% of digital transformation projects are failed. I'm not getting into details, but my probably the speech here today is how to really prepare for this digital bandwagon with this background. Okay, what are the challenges? Number one, I'm sure if I talk to 10 people, what is digital? There is no common understanding. Some people talk in a heavy technology language like AI, ML, IoT, blockchain, distributed ledger technologies, etc. Some people talk in the business language, but what is the common understanding is the biggest challenge today among the all the stakeholders from the bottom to top in the organization. You have been working in an organization for the last probably 20 years, 30 years, 100 years. Some of the organizations are there for more than a century. But traditional thinking with digital execution failed. So that means there is a need for changing the thinking. Then there is a great ambiguity on what to digitalize and when to digitalize. Then finally, how to digitalize. I will try to give answers to all these questions in my presentation. All right. So what will happen now if you are not ready to address the challenges? Your growth will be stagnated. I'm sure you have seen so many examples. I don't need to tell. Most of the greatest organizations of the last decade are not there today. The growth will be stagnated. It's an exit path. And the competition, as I mentioned, not your conventional industry segments. If you are in a manufacturing industry, don't expect that your industry organizations are the competitors. Any technology giant can become your competitor somewhere in the corner. So you should know, and you fail to really compete with them. Customer attrition, because the expectation changed, and if you don't refine your offerings with the digital technologies, then you are out. And how do you basically bring the agility, because the change is pretty fast today. I'm sure when we purchased the mobile phone, it was something like 18 months, 24 months, 36 months was the cycle to get a new version, but today few months. So if you don't have the agility in our operations by using the digital technologies, you are out. I think these are the challenges needs to be addressed. So with this note, I'm not talking about the digital natives who are born digitals, Amazon, Apple, Alphabet. And I don't think I need to talk about them. They are probably 100 times or 1,000 times. They know what they are doing and they are hyper digital today. But what I'm talking today is the digital migrants or immigrants. That means who have been there in the conventional segments like manufacturing, healthcare, retail, banking. All these organizations have to become digital. Then how? That means they have to reinvent their core businesses, considering the hyper-connectivism, people to things, things to things, and also the invasion of technologies and the fusion of technologies. It is changing every dimension. The whole DNA of business is changing. So how these digital immigrants reinvent their core businesses? So my definition of digital transformation is it is two eyes or two lenses: digital business transformation and digital technology transformation. As I mentioned, there are, I think, categories of people who heavily talk about business transformation. Some people talk about only technology transformation, but it's not just only one or this one. The both have to be there. What does it mean? So let us look at here what to digitalize to answer. So there are few building blocks which I fundamentally believe if you take any organization. One is the business vision, business model, business strategy, and the most important thing is you need to design new business outcomes or metrics for a digital business. Your old metrics doesn't work. And your products, whether it is a car or a machine or equipment, services, whether it is banking or healthcare or retail, your business processes, your workplaces, your operating models. So the fundamental question here is how I digitalize all these business building blocks. So you might take a path of evolutionary, you might take a path of incremental transformation. It doesn't mean that you don't digitalize all these things at any moment of time. Maybe you take 3 years, 5 years, but somewhere you have to complete digitalization of all these building blocks. But how you do that? You need to have a foundation. That's where the technology building blocks also have to be digitalized. So do you have the digital technology strategy? Do you have a completely re-engineered governance? We are coming out of IT governance. We are not talking about now a digital technology governance. And the architecture, as I mentioned, it's no more one technology. Maybe in the past, the operation technology guys having their own architectures, the communication collaboration technologies providers have their own architecture. Information technology guys probably might having the most focusing on information technology architecture. But today, I need an architecture with the fusion of all these. So with this transformation of the digital technology building blocks, today everybody is talking about DevSecOps, infrastructure as code, low code, or edge computing, and something like site reliability engineering, so on and so forth, and complete automation within the technology organization like RPA and then AI. We are suggesting to business folks to use that in their business processes. But today, you are using RPA and AI, artificial intelligence even, to transform your technology management processes. So these two dimensions needs to be taken into consideration. Then that's called digital transformation. Then I think I will not spend much time here. The most important thing here is, as I mentioned, you cannot execute digitally with traditional thinking. In our organization, we spent almost last couple of years to introduce something to the world called lean digital thinking. It's not just digital thinking, moving away from the traditional thinking. You also have to be lean. If it is not lean, building and managing the digital enterprises are very expensive. So we introduced 12 principles, lean digital thinking for the digital transformation in the 4 buckets. So the thinking to design the future of your organization, the thinking to get the extraordinary operational excellence, thinking to design our offerings, your product, services, and processes, environmentally responsible, and finally, unforgettable moments of experience. How do you engage? Out of these 4, this is where I think the new thinking, and lean was there for the last probably 60 years plus. There was a different thinking acquired in the second industrial revolution. Okay, and now in the fourth industrial revolution, it is not just lean. You need to have lean digital thinking. So understanding these principles is very essential for you to have, number one, common understanding of what is digital, I said if I ask 10 stakeholders, they have 10 different definitions. Now with these principles, you can avoid. It is something like a common purpose. You are able to establish common thinking and a common language across the organization from bottom to top. And most importantly, you are able to change the thought process of the board of directors, CXOs, BU heads, and technology executives, so on and so forth. So this is a very powerful framework which we have been advocating. Now you know that I talk about these are the 12 building blocks what needs to be digitalized, right? Business digitalization or business building blocks and technology building blocks. But this digitalization doesn't happen with traditional thinking. That's where I've been emphasizing you need to acquire the 12 lean digital thinking principles. So it is like a 12 principles, 12 building blocks. That is the game of digital transformation. That means this is where how to digitalize. You have now 12 principles and 12 building blocks, which you already discussed. The cross section we analyze. That means any building block, if you want to analyze for digital readiness, let us say business process, against these 12 thinking principles we analyze. And then you give something like a lean digital quotient. There, it is your choice. You want to start one process or you want to start out of these 12 building blocks, left side green color. I want to start only one. I want to start two. I want to start three. It's all depends on your scale, your competition, your resources, your budget, your vision, your strategy. What is that I want to start? You have to select out of this business building. You want to select a process digitalization or you want to select product digitalization, you want to select service digitalization, so on and so forth. But anything you want to digitalize, you need to assess against these 12 principles, which I call lean digital thinking principles. That means you can be assessed as a beginner or opportunist or emergent or a cultivator. This is something like a maturity model. So after that, now how to digitalize. So that means when you basically digitalize, when you basically apply this lean digital quotient finder, what you finally know, you will know the digital strengths and digital weaknesses. For example, if I take customer relationship management process and I assess it against 12 lean digital thinking principles, ultimately what I get in this customer relationship management process, these are all the digital strengths. That means we are doing, so these are all the digital weaknesses. So each principle out of the 12 having some lean digital practices. Let us say principle one, XYZ number of practices. So those against those practices we analyze. Finally, we get digital strengths and digital weaknesses. From there, you derive the problems and possibilities. Yes, most of the times, most of the organizations define problems and possibilities with so many methods and frameworks. But what we are trying to do here is do it with complete and the 360-degree view of assessment. Whatever problems and possibilities you define here, they are completely aligned to what really the building blocks we are looking at. So this is what the framework what we use, how to digitalize perspective. As I mentioned, you have the lean digital quotient finder, a 12 by 12 assessment. Then you got the digital strengths and weaknesses. So that's one set. And most important thing, it is done by organization, but I have to connect with the customers also. We have another important tool called C-Voice, where you do the special drives to get the mood of your customers, the voice of your customers using that tool. And you get the complete in against a particular theme or against a particular area. You ask the customers to give their grievances, complaints at that moment of the time. And also we can capture emotions, not only just the complaints. They are happy or unhappy or angry. So these two become an input for us to design the right problems and possibilities. Then we have two options. One, a typical traditional way, the left side. So we provide the mentoring, coaching, or training for the internal organizational experts, work with them to come up with the solutions for the problems and possibilities. The another interesting thing what we built in the last 1.5 years is the open innovation platform. This is like an uberization. That means your problems will be published to the external specialist by taking care of all the confidentiality. There are digital agreements are there. Whether we can publish this into this platform, then you have a possibility that you get solutions from many sources. Could be startups, could be academic institutions, could be research institutions or freelancers, so on and so forth. So that means what? For one problem, you can get 4 or 5 or 6 solutions at a time in different perspectives. That's where, so we have two options, a traditional closed innovation or open digital innovation. So again, as I mentioned, most of the people ask how to start the digitalization. It all depends on your vision, your strategy, and your resources. So a big bang approach, I take 12 building blocks and then assess and come up with some strategy, a balanced scorecard, and setting up a program management office, driving it for 3 years. That's one way of doing it. But not many organizations are ready for that big bang. Then a selective, maybe I want to just take customer relationship management function and digitalize and see the results, or not to even we are ready for that level, just go a point. A customer attrition today is probably 10 to 15%. How to solve that problem using digital initiatives? So I want to emphasize a little bit more on this uberizing innovation. This is where the platform what we built, we call it as CoInnovator. In this CoInnovator, we started inviting some of the specialists in different areas, from the academic institutions, research institutions, startups, and it's not hackathon, and it is not just a staff augmentation type where you have elans type of platforms. This is exactly an extraordinary guys who joined to provide the solutions for the problems what you publish. You will have domain specialists, you have functional specialists, you have digital core competency specialists. So there is a possibility that these guys look at your problem and you get multiple solutions. The complete, it is an enterprise scale. You will have moderator like solution manager and the head of the innovations of your organization, solution head, and there will be assessors you can configure. The total workflow of uploading the problems, curating the problems, publishing the problems, getting the solutions, getting the vote for the solution, assessing the solutions, finally deciding whether the solutions what you got out of, for example, one problem, 10 solutions, which is the best one, right? So all those things are possible here. The reason why we want to promote this is it is becoming difficult day by day for one organization to acquire all the skills required to become digital. So they are mandated today to depend on external specialists. So those specialist availability we are trying to provide using this CoInnovator so that the enterprises and organizations can publish their problem statements here so that the solution providers will provide such type of solutions. So to summarize, then we as an organization for the last couple of years have been working on this. And so one is, I think, as I mentioned, the lean digital quotient finder, digital strengths and weaknesses. Then problems and possibilities definition, solution design through open innovation, and setting up the program management office and digital talent gardening. That means most important thing is how do you, so what fundamentally we did is any organization, we identified 5 paths. One is the business management path, technology management path, technology specialization path, then product management or solution management path. Finally, the strategy, portfolio, program, and project management path. These all 5 paths will be there in most of the organizations. Again, if you have 3 levels, operational, tactical, and strategic in all these 5 paths. So we are now getting into, by October, we plan to release some of the courses, making sure that somebody wants at the operational level trainings in any path, they will get it. Some of the guys want tactical, some of the guys want strategic. So it also helps you to transition from operational to tactical to the strategic and exclusively the digital businesses perspective. And finally, we have partnerships where we can also help in developing the software applications once the consulting, problem definitions and solutions are designed, not only the talent building, also developing the applications. So consider this as a next generation sort of a services organization, but with not one company can do all the things. That's why. So we formed a consortium. I will explain that. So in summary, so with all what we basically, I talk about what to digitalize, the 12 business building blocks, acquiring the digital mindset with 12 lean digital thinking principles, and then you do the 12 by 12 matrix assessment to get lean digital quotient. From that, also getting the pain points and problems from the customers, voice of customers. So based on the digital strengths, weaknesses, and the direct problems list from the customers with their emotions, you define the problems and possibilities. Then you could use the open innovation platform to get multiple solutions. With all those things, we believe we could help the customers to create new revenue streams, and then they could leapfrog the competition, and they can establish the required agility and resilience in the CAO organization. And some very interesting business models they can introduce, and operational excellence also includes the customer retentions. So we established, while BT&BT as a centerpiece provide the digital business consulting, I don't think as in one company you will have all these capabilities. So we have Sudaksha, the digital business and technology skills development. I talk about 5 paths and 3 levels. And we have OSI technologies and digital. They are there for last 25 years, offer software applications and platform development specialists. And we have mentories, and of course we are very specialized in construction quality also. That separately we talk about. It is a completely digital construction. And finally, RIM technologies, without cyber security it's not complete. They are well versed in security oriented cyber security solutions perspective. I think I will pause here. So if any questions, probably will take, because 30 minutes. So I personally did so many engagements myself as a chief consultant and advisor. I mean, prior to starting my own, I was a chief digital officer de facto as a senior vice president global head. So almost 40 units within Tech Mahindra, I was responsible as a charter to transform Tech Mahindra for a digital enterprise and digital businesses. That is 2011 to 14. So then I did the strategy for OSA Consulting and Government of Andhra Pradesh, blockchain strategy, and also fiber grid projects, the complete transformation of the organization. Then Polaris, a talent building for the senior executives. Then Mercury Consulting, we helped one of the media giant. L&T Infotech. Binamar, it is an energy distribution company. And Sri Lanka also, we provided some of the talent building programs. So I'll pause here. So I think next 15 minutes probably we'll spend on questions.
Thank you, Mr. Rao. We have a question for you. The question, when we create the strategy using the 12 building blocks, but choose to act on only 2 of them in the first year and 4 the next year and the rest in the following year, in such a case, how do you ensure that we don't undo or probably redo what we did already in the first year for the first 2 blocks?
Okay. So this is a very interesting question. In fact, my book is getting released in December. There I clearly mentioned my advice is, especially the 4 building blocks, irrespective of whatever the journey you start, have to be done. Whether you want to go for functional type digital transformation or a point solution or something, business vision, business model, business strategy, and business outcomes. The digitalization is nothing but creating the blueprint. So the question here to answer, better start these 4 building blocks for a couple of months and create the blueprint for our organization on the whole, so that you get 360 degree of what is that business models, business strategy, and high level, all these things you create after assessing where you are today. Vision is right, your business models are okay, whatever the strategy map you created is okay or not, and the outcomes you need to redefine. So complete that as phase 1, irrespective of whatever the path you take. The remaining 8 building blocks align to this business blueprint, you move forward. That's where I think there will not be any misalignment. That's my suggestion.
Thank you. Now the next question is, what is the right measure of the success of digital transformation strategy? How do we measure that? Especially DX actually means business and technology transformation.
See, one is, I think any transformation initiative, what is the return on investment? The first fundamental metric I see is, okay, if somebody says 70% projects failed, So if I invested probably a couple of millions of dollars, and is there any return? What is the return? Am I able to get new customers? Am I able to retain the existing customers because their expectations and everything is changing? And am I able to create new revenue streams using this digital transformation? That means I'm able to reach the places. Let us take an hospital with the telepresence and the latest and greatest communication collaboration technologies, able to establish the private health care centers at rural India today, especially Apollo and the type of company. They are able to create new revenue streams because of the digital transformation. So whether you are able to reduce the cost of acquiring your customer, right? So all these are the new measures you need to measure in addition to the return on investment. So if I invested 2 million, am I getting probably a 5x or 2x of revenue, or am I get probably 2 times more or 1.5 times more customers? Am I able to improve my profits? Those are the measures. That's I think business side. When it comes to the technology transformation side, most importantly, the lead time to respond to business is the most critical thing. I think I'm sure most of the people talking about the Agile, Scrum, DevOps, DevSecOps, infrastructure, code, and all. This is a digital transformation. Then am I able to release the apps within hours and days? That's a fundamental metric. Am I able to provide the infrastructure within few hours? That means, am I able to give the required insight, whether algorithmic models and other things to the businesses within shorter time? So the agility, the scalability, and the resilience, the speed at which the technology organization respond to business requirements is the key success factor. On business side, I already mentioned. So I think these two angles to be considered as a success.
That's interesting because the next question is also related somewhat to the earlier one. But how do we predict the ROI to convince the leadership to go for digital transformation?
See, I think the return on investment is very, I think you call, as I mentioned, for example, first, are you clear about the problem? So that's where I mentioned using the lead digital quotient finder. I have to make sure that I identified the right problem. Most of the times, my experience also says that most of the guys identify the problem statements with passion, with affection or a love with technologies. Most of the times, I'm not saying everyone. Okay. So first, identifying the right problem statements and giving confidence to the senior management that the assessment what we have done using this 12 by 12 principle, whatever XYZ, we are able to identify the right problem statement and right probably the possibilities. And number two, by you need to showcase what are all the outcomes you are going to impact by solving that problem statement, whether it is the revenue. And sometimes some of the organizations even have the simulation models. Some of the mature organizations, for your business case has to be simulated. I don't expect every organization will have that. When I was working in TCS, for example, even a technology company used to have a business simulator. So that means you can simulate with by solving this problem, whether it is going to impact my revenue, whether it is going to impact my profit, so on and so forth. Let me give one example. When I was in Satyam, we used to have Featurous as a lab, invested heavily, multi-million dollars. So let us say that to solve this problem, I want to tweak a particular business process. So the tweaking is not just simply on the paper. We used to model it. Of course, today everybody is talking about digital twins. That's the name. But in the past, we used to have that process simulator. Let us take a flight taking the route of Vizag, Hyderabad to Delhi versus Vizag, Bangalore to Delhi. So which is the profitable route? So are you able to simulate and take the different parameters and then try to give some sort of outcomes? I think those are all the innovations needs to be brought in. Otherwise, the outcomes expectation is based on pure experience and based on discussion with few experts and advisors. Okay, that is still subjective. So how do you get into a quantitative measurement of the business cases, simulations, getting out of the expected outcomes with right problem definition? I think will really give confidence to the management that we are spending time on the right problem and right business case. That's my view.
Okay. Another question we have is currently we have 4 factories in our business and they are at different levels of digital maturity. What is your advice on how we should proceed from an overall DX perspective?
Okay, so I think if this is one organization, as I mentioned, the manufacturing today, for example, you have the 4 production shops. So what is our strategy for a smart factory? At a higher level, at an organizational level, we need to define. When I say factory, it has the physical processes, it has the machines, it has the equipment, it has the labor, and so on and so forth. Do I have a blueprint of what a smart factory ideally in my organization means? Can I really come up with some sort of a blueprint for that? What is that smart factory? Then what sort of products and services which you are manufacturing at a production shop have the high potential to reach the customers, where you have more revenue potential, or where you can really best utilize the capacity of the machines, or where you can improve the operational efficiency. You need to identify a few set of parameters to prioritize which shop you have to digitalize first with some quantifiable parameters that you have to agree with your management and also the shop floor people. So then I think based on that quantifiable parameter, you say that this is what the shop floor 1 needs to be digitalized first as per my overall strategy and also as per my quantifiable parameters. So I think to summarize, have a blueprint for smart factory or a smart production floor, how it looks like. You need to visualize ideally. You may not do everything at a time. Then what are the quantifiable parameters to select which factory best fit into the digitalization journey, and then prioritize and then move forward, because your budget is limited, your resources are limited, you cannot go everything at a time.
Another question is, the senior staff is the biggest hurdle to the digital adoption in my organization. What should be my approach to get them on board?
See, the first thing is this is a common problem everywhere. First thing is the for the digital journey, the commitment should come from board of directors and CEO. If they feel the digital transformation is the job of the CIO or a CTO, and I don't think my personal view, if they still believe in that and they feel that oh nahi chahiye and all, first that may not be a right organization, number one. But they are not educated, they are traditionally come from different businesses backgrounds, they know at higher level that digital is going to make or a break. They are ready to, I think, listen, they are ready to change, ready to adapt. Certainly we need to conduct a few executive workshops in their language, in their business language, not in the language of artificial intelligence is great and we have edge computing, next 5 years quantum computing, distributed ledger. They are lost. Most of the guys we observed, the business people, especially in India, they expect how I can create revenue streams, how I can sustain for next 5 years, how I can improve my profit, how I can get my new customers or existing customers, how I don't leave. Can you give use cases and case studies in their language to the senior executives and convince them? I think that's where the thought process will start changing. That is the first part. Second is you need to define. Most of the times the culture is a myth. Most of the times the people say with a great culture. But when I ask a question, do you have a black and white blueprint for culture? There is nothing defined. So I think we need to define what is the new culture required. Culture is nothing but your principles, your rituals, your values, your slogans, your language. I was working at Mahindra. We used to have something like accepting no limits, driving positive change, alternative thinking. That's the language we use. That means in any meeting, I ask, what is the alternative thinking you got, my dear friend, my team member? And what is that think big attitude you brought, driving the positive change? That means a language needs to be promoted, slogans, rituals. So you have to put a black and white of the culture. You need to educate everyone. You need to start practicing it, right? This is a huge change program, and most of the ERP programs in India failed. If you observe, even for that scale of transformation, they failed. This really requires maybe 5 times more change. It's going to change the complete DNA. So to summarize, if they are not ready to listen, they are not at all interested, that's not the right company. If they are interested, they want to learn, they want to move forward, bring some of the senior executives from the market who can really convince them. They become some mentors and advisors for them for some time, and they start thinking in that direction.
Mr. Rao, we still have questions, but would you like the polling questions to go up on screen so that we can understand?
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
audience
please.
what it thinks? Okay, fine. We'll
Yeah.
start with the first question.
So,
I think another 10 seconds and we'll see the results.
yeah, sure, sure. I think you're putting first question, right?
Which industry segment will invest on digitalization soon? Auto, retail bank, retail, high-tech, transport.
Okay. Yeah. So auto 15%, retail bank 22, retail 29, high tech 22, transportation 12. Good. Yeah. Maybe we can have the second also, if possible.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
CIO organizations ready to become digital business innovator, advisor to business executives. Please select one, high, moderate, low.
Yeah, this question is mostly not limiting to applications, infrastructure, going beyond that and becoming an advisor or innovator to the board of directors, CXOs, BU heads, the CAOs and their team, suggest new product features, new revenue streams. It's like a true advisor and innovator. Why you need external guys if CAO is ready to do that? Okay, 45% high, moderate 40%, low 14%. That's good. I think it's good. All right, so maybe we'll take a couple of questions and last poll question we can do it, Kavita. If any,
Sure. Sure,
I
sure.
think we have 2 minutes. Yeah,
Another
yeah.
question is, while benchmarking a competitor's digital strategy, which parameters should be considered with respect to manufacturing industry?
Yeah, see, I mean, I don't think there is any standard for that. End of the day, as I mentioned, one of the pillars I mentioned is the business outcomes. Even in the manufacturing industry, if you take, so if you want to move to a smart manufacturing, what are the new metrics you want to define to benchmark against your competition? I cannot benchmark with the old traditional type of metrics, right? So, for example, let us take the customer retention or customer acquisition. As I mentioned, we never monitor something like the cost of acquiring a customer. So, are you spending a dollar? Are you spending $1,000 to acquire a customer? Are you spending probably $500 to acquire a customer? That could be one of the important parameters. I'm just giving few examples. I cannot talk everything. So that's one, I think, customer side. Then the supply chain related, you have, for example, the lead time to deliver a product to the your customer is XYZ in the past. But today, you say that using IoT and blockchain technologies, you are able to do it one fifth or one third or half of the time. So those metrics needs to be defined to compare and benchmark. But I don't see, even we have not done it. Very honest, if you ideally ask me the lean digital thinking principles 12, I have to apply a manufacturing industry, I have to do for 2030, and then finally I can say that these are all the benchmarking areas, how we can compare and all. So at this juncture, my suggestion is you need to sit together and define what sort of existing metrics needs to be re-engineered. Some of the old metrics needs to be removed, and some of the new metrics needs to be added, and filter, finalize. I think those things probably we could use for comparison.
There's another question. Is there a ready-made solution to stimulate a specific business, or it needs to be created for every business?
Ready-made business, sorry,
Solution
can you
to
repeat that?
simulate, yeah, I'll just repeat. Is there a ready-made solution to simulate a specific business, or it needs to be created for every business?
So I think there are few tools and technologies available for simulations. Simulation could be for a process, simulation could be for a product, and simulation could be, if you are from healthcare industry, for heart. That's where the concept is emerging, called digital twin. There are 3D modeling tools are there, and augmented reality, virtual reality, artificial intelligence and all, but this needs some initial investment. So there are best simulation tools are available for specific industries. So for example, Philips, they do an excellent simulation for the human anatomy. They do the simulation for the that's called the heart, and the actual data from the human body goes and sit in that simulated heart in the real time, and they can predict when the heart attack may come. So that is one simulation. As I said, some of the organizations are simulating the processes like supply chain and seeing how the outcomes will be there. For example, Siemens have done a simulation for sandstorms at Dubai. Dubai is known for sandstorms. Using some sensors and IoT related solution, they created a simulated model in 3D, and they're able to simulate the sandstorm, when it will come, what is the impact. And they took all the preventive and predictive solutions. So to summarize, yes, there are industry specific simulation tools are there. So healthcare and manufacturing, there are cars, for example, they're able to simulate today, and so on and so forth. Yes, specific required. I think the tools might be somewhat common across the industries, but there are specific models to be created. There's nothing like one medicine fits all.
That's right. Another question is it better to have in-house digital development team or outsourcing it?
In-house development team, you should have some key positions, but it's impossible for any organization, in my view, to have the total. I talk about 12, 15 technologies, and I talk about you need to have the understanding the technologies to impact the businesses. So it is not right to have complete internal digital development, but our leadership and a few specialists who will have to be there, so that we will not be fooled from the customer organization. And you need to look for not just only the biggies, you need to look for very specialized niche startups. So a partnership strategy, procurement strategy, and the suppliers acquisition strategy completely need to be relooked at. Your existing model needs to be completely re-engineered. That means your biggies may not be in a position to offer some solutions. A small startup sitting in the corner might be providing an extraordinary solution. So insourcing, outsourcing have to go together. You cannot build everything insourcing, but have the leadership and have few specialists to validate what the outsourcing providers are doing. At least a project management office to monitor. Those things have to be within our organization. The specialists you can acquire from outside.
A very basic question has come in. How do we know that the startup will deliver?
Yeah, I think startup is always a sort of startup itself is a high risky. So sometimes when we were working with one of the guys, there was something like an escrow account even for the code what we develop. If suppose the startup management ability is not there or financial ability is not there, what is the guarantee that there are no clashes between the directors? What is the guarantee that these guys don't die because of the funding problems and all? So I think my view is at least 3 years. Usually the litmus test is a startup which is there for 3 years. Means there is a passion, there is a survival ability. Okay, you can probably look at as a something like a medium risk startup. And what is their, who are their investors, and what is their management? Are they something senior people driving it with mix of the juniors and specialists? And who are all their advisors and mentors? So you need to have a few parameters before you, that's where I said your procurement strategy needs to be looked at in multiple dimensions, especially startups. You need a separate acquisition strategy to see that. What is the product maturity? How long the product has been used? Sometimes the product is not at all used. Then what startups can say that we will do a proof of concept. Don't go in a big bang way. So probably you complete the proof of concept, but don't just do it for the sake of doing. Most of the times, unfortunately, startups are just misused, and organizations ask them to do the proof of concept. After that, they don't come back. So if you are serious, ask them to do a couple of months proof of concept. If you are convinced, then you look at their funding position, their advisors, their mentors, their investor portfolio, and their management ability. All those things you look at before inviting.
Okay, thank you. Now let's take the third poll question now.
Yeah.
To what extent CIO organizations have digitalized their internal processes and systems? Again, high, moderate, or low?
Yeah, I think moderate 82%, high 9%, low 9%. That's good. Good. So yeah, Kavita will.
Yeah, I think now we have got a sense of how the audience has been looking at the presentation, and they've replied to the poll questions also. So
Yes.
thank you, Mr. And it was a very informative session, and a lot of questions came to you from people who actually want to, have this digital transformation on and going, and they must be facing some issues. That's why those questions came up, and your answers really helped them, I'm sure. If there are any further questions, I'll connect with you offline as well. Thank you to all the participants who are there on this webinar. I would request you to join our other masterclasses also, and also visit the virtual exhibition which is there for you from all the technology companies. I'm sure you'll find some solutions to the way you're conducting your business in these times. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Rao.
Thank you, Kavita, and thank you for all the attendees for joining this session. Good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.